A single mother sits in seat 12F on a commercial flight, carrying 8 years of sacrifice and forgotten dreams. She was once a fearless fighter pilot known as Viper 1. Then life changed. But when a military commander recognizes her on that plane and says, "Welcome back," everything transforms. She discovers you don't have to choose between being a devoted mother and reclaiming your power. Some people fly planes. Others fly toward their true selves. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The cabin of the commercial aircraft hummed with the familiar sounds of a Tuesday afternoon flight. Sarah Mitchell sat in seat 12F, clutching her boarding pass like it was a golden ticket. At 38 years old, she had learned that small victories deserved recognition. This flight from Denver to Washington, D.C. represented something she thought she had lost forever, a purpose beyond motherhood, though motherhood itself had been her greatest achievement. Her daughter Emma was 8 years old now, sleeping at her grandmother's house for the week. Sarah had packed Emma's favorite stuffed bear, kissed her forehead 3 times, and promised to call every evening. Leaving her child never got easier, but this trip was different. This trip was about rediscovering who Sarah had been before she became someone's mother. Sarah gazed out the window at the clouds forming patterns below. She wore her good navy blazer, the one she saved for interviews and important meetings. Her hands were steady now, her mind clear. It hadn't always been this way. 8 years ago, when Emma was born, Sarah had been at a crossroads that seemed impossible to navigate. She had been a fighter pilot in the United States Air Force. Viper 1 was her call sign, earned during her first deployment when she had navigated 3 squadron mates safely through a sandstorm in Afghanistan that had disabled multiple aircraft systems. Her record was spotless. Her future had seemed limitless. And then she discovered she was pregnant. The military had changed over the years, becoming more flexible about parental responsibilities, but the reality of being a single mother in active service presented challenges that policies could not fully address. Her partner, another pilot, had made his choice to leave when he learned about the pregnancy. Sarah had made hers. She chose Emma. The decision to leave the Air Force had not been made lightly. Sarah had spent 17 years building her career, training her mind and body to perform under extreme pressure. She was the kind of pilot who could land a damaged F-22 Raptor with one engine compromised, who could make split-second decisions that saved lives. Leaving that world felt like amputating a part of herself. But she had walked away. She had taken a desk job at an aerospace consulting firm, then later moved into project management at a defense contractor. The pay was decent, but the work felt hollow. She attended Emma's school plays and soccer games. She helped with homework and packed lunches. She read bedtime stories and held her daughter close when she had nightmares. Sarah had no regrets about Emma. What she regretted was the person she had left behind. Over the past year, Sarah had begun to change her thinking. Why did she have to choose between being a devoted mother and reclaiming her professional identity? She had started taking online courses, earning new certifications. She had updated her resume and reached out to old contacts. This trip to Washington was for a series of interviews with aerospace companies and military consulting firms. Some of them specialized in pilot training programs. Some worked on advanced aircraft development. The airplane began its descent into Reagan National Airport. Sarah straightened her blazer, powered on her phone, and took a deep breath. Her mother had texted a photo of Emma sleeping peacefully. Sarah smiled. She would be back in 5 days. 5 days to prove to herself that she could still be Viper 1. The hotel was modest but comfortable. Sarah checked in, ordered a salad from room service, and reviewed her interview notes until midnight. The first meeting was scheduled for 9 in the morning at the Pentagon with a department head overseeing pilot training and development. Commander James Harrison was waiting for her in a secure conference room. He was a tall man in his early 60s, with the bearing of someone who had spent most of his life in the military. He studied her resume for a long moment, then looked up at her with an expression she could not quite read. Viper 1, he said, not as a greeting but as a statement of fact. I remember the reports from your squadron. You were extraordinary. Thank you, sir, Sarah replied. That's why I'm here. I realize now that I made the right choice when I left to raise my daughter. But I also realize that I don't have to abandon that part of myself entirely. I want to contribute to aviation and defense in new ways. Commander Harrison leaned back in his chair. Tell me about your daughter. The question caught Sarah off guard. She had prepared for inquiries about her qualifications, her experience, her technical skills. She had not prepared to explain Emma. She's 8, Sarah said simply. She's smart, funny, creative. She wants to be an astronaut, which I blame on YouTube videos. Her favorite subject is mathematics. She's never met her father. It's just been us. Do you regret leaving the service? Harrison asked. Sarah considered the question carefully. I would regret not being there for Emma. I did not regret being Viper 1, and I don't regret that now. What I regret is the false choice I thought I had to make. I thought I had to be one thing or the other. I'm hoping to find a way to be both. Harrison smiled slightly. We're developing a new pilot training initiative. It's designed to maximize the effectiveness of F-22 pilots by incorporating advanced AI analysis, psychological performance optimization, and real-time feedback systems. We need someone who understands what it's like to be in that cockpit. Someone who can bridge the gap between the theoretical models and the actual experience of a combat pilot, someone who hasn't lost the instincts. He slid a folder across the table toward her. This is classified, so we'd need to reactivate your clearance. But I want you to look at the program. I think you could be perfect for the role. It's a hybrid position, some field time, some administrative time, based in Arlington. Sarah opened the folder and began reading. The program was fascinating. It was exactly the kind of work that could utilize her unique skill set while allowing her the stability and schedule that Emma needed. How much travel? Sarah asked. 20%, maybe 30% during development phases, nothing that would require you to relocate or be gone for months at a time. Sarah felt something shift inside her chest. For 8 years, she had been compartmentalizing. Her work identity and her mother identity lived in separate boxes that never touched. This position was asking her to integrate them, to bring her full self to her work. I'm interested, she said. Over the next 3 days, Sarah met with additional people in the program. She toured facilities, reviewed specifications, sat down with younger pilots who would be participating in the training initiative. She also met with a human resources specialist who discussed how the position could be tailored to accommodate her parenting responsibilities. The specialist, a woman named Jennifer, had her own children and understood deeply the challenges of balancing professional ambitions with family commitments. We believe that people are better at their jobs when they have fulfilling personal lives, Jennifer explained. You're not choosing between being a good mother and being a good professional. You're going to be both, and that makes you better at both roles. Sarah asked detailed questions about the flexibility, the schedule, the expectations. Jennifer answered each one with honesty and clarity. By the end of the meeting, Sarah felt genuinely seen, not as someone who had to apologize for being a mother, but as someone whose experience as a parent actually enhanced her professional capabilities. By the time she was waiting at the gate to fly back to Denver, Sarah's heart felt lighter than it had in years. She would get the official offer after her security clearance was updated, but everyone made it clear that they wanted her on the team. The flight home was in the late afternoon. Sarah sat in seat 12F again, the same seat, on the return flight exactly 1 week later. She was thinking about how to explain this to Emma when a voice interrupted her thoughts. Ma'am? Are you Sarah Mitchell? Sarah looked up. A man in an Air Force dress uniform was standing in the aisle, his cap under one arm. He looked to be in his mid-40s, with kind eyes and an expression of genuine warmth. I am, Sarah said, a note of caution in her voice. I'm Major Derek Stevens. I was 2 years behind you at the academy. I heard through the grapevine that you were interviewing this week with Commander Harrison's team. I wanted to catch you at the airport, but you cleared security before I could. He smiled ruefully. I'm heading to Denver to see some family, and I was surprised to see you had the same flight. I just wanted to say, it's good to see you coming back. Sarah felt her throat tighten. Back to what? To the work you were meant to do, Derek said. I don't know exactly what Commander Harrison is proposing, but I know that the Air Force needs people like you. People who understand what it means to fly, to lead, to make decisions that matter. And people who also understand what it means to be human. To have a life beyond the uniform. He took a seat in the row across from her as the other passengers boarded, and they talked until the crew asked him to take his assigned seat. Derek told her about his own transition to military consulting, about how he had realized that serving his country didn't have to mean being on active duty. He told her about his own children, now teenagers, and how he had learned to be present for them while still engaging in meaningful work. He also shared stories about pilots he had worked with who had successfully balanced family and career, demonstrating that the two were not mutually exclusive. I made a mistake early in my career, Derek admitted. I thought I had to choose. I missed my daughter's 10th birthday because of a deployment. That's when I realized that the right career path is one that allows you to show up for both your work and your family. Don't make the same mistake I did. Make sure whatever you choose something that lets you be fully present for Emma. When they landed in Denver, Derek helped her with her carry-on bag. For what it's worth, he said as they reached the baggage claim, I think Viper 1 never really left the sky. She just changed altitude for a while. Now she's ready to climb again. Sarah's mother and Emma were waiting outside the arrival terminal. Emma ran to Sarah the moment she emerged from the sliding doors, throwing her arms around her mother's waist. Mommy! I missed you so much. Grandma let me help make chocolate chip cookies, and we watched the video about the James Webb Telescope again, and I made a drawing for you. Sarah knelt down and held her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. She looked over Emma's head at her mother, who was smiling with knowing warmth. How was your trip? Her mother asked. Transformative, Sarah said. That evening, after Emma had fallen asleep, Sarah sat with her mother in the kitchen with cups of tea. I think I found something, Sarah told her mother. A position that could let me do meaningful work without sacrificing time with Emma. Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I've been waiting for this, she said. I've watched you struggle for 8 years between two parts of yourself. You don't have to keep struggling. The right opportunity will let you integrate both. 2 weeks later, Sarah received the official offer. She would start her new position in Arlington in 6 weeks. Her title would be Senior Pilot Training Systems Developer. The salary was significantly higher than her previous job. The position included flexible work arrangements and the support of a department that understood the importance of work-life balance. Sarah gave notice at her current job and spent the next 5 weeks preparing. She and Emma found an apartment closer to Arlington where they could be near the training facility. Sarah reinstated her secret/top secret clearance and completed the necessary security protocols. She reviewed hundreds of pages of technical documentation and program specifications. But mostly, Sarah focused on talking to Emma about the changes coming their way. Change at this age could be scary. Mommy has a new job, Sarah explained one evening as they packed boxes in the apartment. It's very exciting work, helping people who are pilots become better at their jobs. Like you were? Emma asked. Exactly like I was. I flew airplanes that are very special and very fast. Will you fly again? Emma's voice carried hope and worry. I'll spend some time in simulators, to keep my skills sharp, Sarah said. But mostly I'll be helping other pilots. I'll be using my brain instead of flying the plane myself. Your brain is amazing, Emma said seriously. I'm glad you'll use it. Sarah's first week at work was intense. The team was welcoming but focused. They threw themselves into the work with a passion that Sarah recognized and shared. These were people who cared about excellence, who understood that the pilots they trained were responsible for lives and national security. Sarah found herself energized by the work in a way she had not been since she left active duty. During her lunch break on Thursday of the first week, Sarah sat in the cafeteria reviewing training modules when she noticed something significant. The team had designed the program with input from multiple disciplines, not just pilots, but psychologists, engineers, data scientists, and business strategists. They had created something comprehensive and innovative that no single perspective could have developed alone. She realized that her 8 years outside the military had given her insights that pure military personnel might not have. She had learned about project management, budget constraints, working with diverse teams, and civilian perspectives on the military. These skills made her more valuable to the team, not less. On Friday of her first week, Commander Harrison asked her to join him for a final tour of the training facility. As they walked through the flight simulation chamber, he mentioned casually, "We're getting requests from allied nations to participate in the training program. South Korea, Japan, Australia, Great Britain. They all want to know if we can conduct sessions for their pilots." Sarah's mind was already working through the logistics. We'd need to develop modular components that could be deployed internationally while maintaining security protocols. We could create international versions of the program with selected modules. It would be challenging, but it's doable. Commander Harrison smiled. "That's exactly what I thought you'd say. How would you feel about heading up that expansion initiative?" By the time Sarah returned to the apartment that evening, she had a promotion opportunity and an expanded role. Emma was waiting with a drawing she had made at school, a woman in a blue flight suit standing in front of a large airplane, with the words, "My Mommy, Viper 1" written in careful print across the top. Sarah taped the drawing to the refrigerator and pulled her daughter close. She thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment, the painful decision to leave the military, the years of sacrifice, the slow reclaiming of her identity. She thought about how love and ambition did not have to be in conflict. They could strengthen each other. The next evening, Sarah attended a dinner event for the pilot training program. She wore her dress uniform for the first time in 8 years. She had the decorations of her service, the medals, the insignias. As she looked in the mirror before leaving, she saw someone she recognized. Not the young pilot she had been, but someone more complete. Someone who had learned what it meant to sacrifice and to prioritize. Someone who had learned that strength came in many forms. At the event, she was introduced to pilots from 3 different countries, all eager to learn about the new training methodology. She discussed flight physics and psychological performance optimization with specialists from the Royal Air Force. She talked about leadership development with pilots from the Japanese Self-Defense Force. She shared stories, carefully edited for classification purposes, about her own experience flying combat missions, explaining how those experiences now informed her approach to training the next generation. An older pilot from Great Britain, Air Vice Marshal Margaret Chen, pulled her aside near the end of the evening. "Viper 1, she said, shaking her hand. "I've heard the stories. I wanted to meet the woman who had the courage to walk away and the courage to walk back. It took me 8 years to understand that it wasn't walking away," Sarah replied. "It was walking towards something I needed to understand." "And now?" Margaret asked. "Now I'm home in a different way. I'm using everything I know and everything I've learned. I get to tuck my daughter into bed most nights and still engage in work that matters." Margaret smiled. "That's the Holy Grail, isn't it? Not balance, integration. The idea that all the pieces of ourselves can work together instead of fighting." As Sarah drove home that night, she thought about that word. Integration. Her entire journey had been about learning to integrate rather than compartmentalize. She was a mother and a pilot. She was a professional and a parent. She was someone who could make critical decisions in high-pressure situations and someone who could braid her daughter's hair and listen to stories about school. Emma was sleeping when Sarah arrived home, but the babysitter had left a note on the kitchen counter. She drew another picture of you today. It's on the refrigerator. This drawing showed two figures, a woman in a blue flight suit and a child in a white astronaut suit, standing hand in hand against a background of stars. Sarah stood in the kitchen, looking at her daughter's artwork, and allowed herself to feel the full depth of her happiness. She was Viper 1. She was also Emma's mother. She was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Senior Pilot Training Systems Developer. She was all of these things, and they were not in conflict. They were complementary pieces of a whole person. The next morning, as she drove to work, Sarah received a call from Commander Harrison. "I wanted to catch you before you got to the office," he said. "I've been authorized to offer you the position as Director of International Pilot Development. It would be a significant expansion of your role. You'd coordinate programs across 5 allied nations, oversee a team of 12, and report directly to me. The salary increase is substantial, and you'd have the flexibility to work from Arlington 3 days a week and remotely 2 days." Sarah pulled into a quiet parking lot to focus on the conversation. "I'm honored," she said. "And I'm interested. I want to confirm the work schedule expectations first, though. I need to be able to attend my daughter's school events and maintain consistent evening time with her." "That's already factored into the arrangement," Harrison said. "We're not asking you to give up being a mother. We're asking you to bring your full self to this work. That includes your responsibilities as a parent." After the call ended, Sarah sat for a moment in her car, watching the early morning traffic pass by. She thought about the seat 12F where she had sat a week ago, wondering if it was possible to reclaim a part of herself she had thought was lost forever. She thought about Major Derek Stevens and his words about climbing to a new altitude. She was ready. She was more than ready. That evening, Sarah sat Emma down on the couch and told her about the promotion. "I'm going to be leading a team of people," she explained. "It's a big new job. It means I'll be working on some really important projects. Will you still be here for my soccer games?" Emma asked, the core question that mattered most. "Every single one," Sarah promised. "Unless they schedule one on a military holiday. And I'll still read to you every night and help with homework. My work won't be in a cockpit anymore, but it will be important work." Emma considered this carefully, then nodded. "That's good. I want you to be happy. You smile more now than you did before your trip." Sarah pulled her daughter close and realized that Emma understood, perhaps better than adults sometimes did, that happiness came from being whole. From integrating all the parts of yourself into one authentic life. 3 months into her new position, Sarah received an email from a pilot in Japan. He had completed the new training program and wanted to thank her for developing such effective methodology. He included a photo of himself standing in front of an F-22 fighter jet with a thumbs-up gesture and a message written in broken English expressing his gratitude for how the program had transformed his approach to flying. 6 months into her new position, she was invited to present the pilot training program at an international aviation conference in London. Major Stevens attended the same conference, and they had lunch together, talking about their respective paths and how being a parent had made them better at their work, not worse. Derek shared that his own children were now proud of what he did, understanding that service to one's country could take many forms. 1 year into her new position, Sarah sat in the audience as Emma's school held a career day. Emma stood at the front of the gymnasium and talked about her mother's work. "My mommy was a fighter pilot," Emma said with obvious pride. "And now she helps other pilots be really good at their jobs. She works with pilots from all over the world. She's like a hero in an office instead of in a plane. She teaches people how to be brave and smart and make good decisions. And she still comes to all my soccer games." Sarah, sitting in the back of the gymnasium, felt tears slide down her cheeks. Not because Emma had called her a hero, she had never thought of herself that way. But because her daughter understood, at such a young age, that what you do and who you are could blend together into something beautiful and strong. That evening, Emma asked to try the flight simulator at Sarah's workplace. Sarah arranged it for a Saturday afternoon when the facility was quiet. They suited up together in the prepared flight suit. "Show me what you do," Emma said. Sarah guided her daughter through a basic training scenario, explaining the instruments, the controls, the thought processes behind every decision. Emma listened with intense focus, her fingers mimicking the movements Sarah demonstrated. "Could I be a pilot like you were?" Emma asked. "You could be anything you want," Sarah said. "You could be a pilot. Or you could do something we haven't even thought of yet. The most important thing is that you choose what feels right for you." Emma nodded seriously. "Like you did." It had taken Sarah 8 years to understand what her 8-year-old daughter grasped in one moment. That life was not about making the right choice once. It was about making choices that were true to who you were at different points in your journey. It was about being willing to evolve and integrate all the pieces of yourself. As Sarah drove home with Emma that evening, her daughter sleeping in the passenger seat with a little smile on her face, Sarah felt complete in a way she had not expected possible. She had reclaimed her professional identity without abandoning her role as a mother. She had learned that Viper 1 had never left the sky. She had simply changed altitudes, and in doing so, she had discovered a new horizon. The next morning, as she prepared breakfast and helped Emma get ready for school, Sarah looked at the drawings on the refrigerator, the collection of images her daughter had created over the past year. They told a story of growth, of change, of a mother and child learning to navigate the world together, each in their own way. She was Viper 1. She was also Emma's mother. She was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Director of International Pilot Development. She was all of these things, and they were no longer in conflict. They were parts of a complete person, flying at the exact altitude where she was meant to be. Years later, when Emma was older, she would look back on this time and realize that the most important lesson her mother taught her was not about flying planes or achieving professional success. It was about the possibility of being whole, of refusing to fragment yourself into separate roles, and of understanding that love and ambition, sacrifice and self-care, motherhood and professional identity could all exist together in one person. That lesson would shape Emma's own path, reminding her that she did not have to choose between her dreams and her relationships. She could, like her mother, find a way to honor both. 5 years after that first promotion, Sarah found herself standing in the Pentagon, preparing to give a presentation to military leadership from 6 allied nations. She was now the chief advisor on pilot training development, a position that had evolved far beyond what anyone had initially imagined. The program she had helped create had revolutionized how fighter pilots were trained, increasing effectiveness by 40% while reducing training time by 30%. Emma was now 13 years old, a straight-A student who had indeed decided to pursue aviation. She was taking advanced mathematics and physics classes, and she had started flying lessons at a local airfield with her mother's full support. On weekends, they would go to the airport together, Emma piloting small Cessnas under expert supervision while Sarah watched with a mixture of pride and the particular anxiety that only a parent who knows the risks can feel. But tonight was different. Tonight, Sarah stood in her dress uniform, decorated with medals and commendations earned through her innovative work. Beside her stood Commander Harrison, now retired, and Jennifer from HR, who had become a close friend and mentor. They had all fought together to create a system that respected military excellence while honoring the human need for meaningful relationships and personal fulfillment. As Sarah began her presentation, she thought about the journey. She thought about Seat 12F and the woman who had sat there 8 years ago, wondering if it was possible to reclaim herself. She thought about the fears she had felt, the uncertainty, the painful moments when she worried she was doing everything wrong. She thought about the night Emma had asked her, "Could I be a pilot like you were?" and how that question had crystallized something important. Sarah had not just survived the integration of her two identities. She had thrived because of it. And more importantly, her daughter was growing up watching a woman who was fully herself, who refused to apologize for her ambitions or her love, who made space for both in her life. The presentation went beautifully. The military leaders asked intelligent questions, and Sarah answered them with the authority of someone who had lived in both worlds, the world of combat pilots and the world of working parents. When she finished, there was a standing ovation. Later, at the reception, several pilots approached her to thank her for the training program. One young female captain told Sarah that the program had changed her life, helping her understand that she could be a serious, capable pilot and still value the relationships that mattered to her. "I've been terrified that I'd have to choose," the captain said. "That I'd have to be one thing or the other. But your program, and your presence here, shows me that's not true." Sarah placed a hand on the young woman's shoulder. "I spent years thinking I had to choose," she said. "I'm grateful to have learned that was a false choice. But I'm even more grateful that the next generation doesn't have to learn that lesson the hard way. You can be everything you want to be." That night, Sarah called Emma before bed. It was their nightly ritual, no matter how busy Sarah's schedule became. "Hey, Mom," Emma answered. "How was the big presentation?" "It went well, sweetheart. I'm thinking about you, though." "How was your physics test?" "I got an A-, Emma said. I made one small mistake on the last problem, but Mr. Peterson said my method was correct. He wants me to try the advanced aerospace physics class next year." "That's wonderful," Sarah said, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. "I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of you too," Emma said. "The news is showing your presentation. You looked amazing." After they hung up, Sarah sat in her hotel room and reflected on everything that had changed. She had returned to the field she loved, but in a completely different way. She was not flying combat missions anymore, but she was still shaping the future of aviation. She was still using her skills, her knowledge, her hard-won expertise. And she was doing it while being fully present as a mother. She attended Emma's school events. She helped with homework. She listened to her daughter's dreams and fears. She modeled for Emma what it meant to be a woman who refused to be limited by false choices. The program Sarah had developed was being implemented internationally. Pilots from allied nations were training using methodologies that had been shaped by her unique perspective, someone who understood both military excellence and human complexity. The program was saving lives because it was producing better trained pilots. But it was also transforming military culture, showing that you could maintain the highest standards of military training while also creating space for pilots to be whole human beings. Commander Harrison had told her something profound before his retirement. "You know what your real achievement is?" he had asked. "It's not just the training program. It's proving that the military doesn't have to choose between excellence and humanity. That we can have both. Your example is changing how we think about leadership, about what it means to serve, about what we value in our people." Sarah had cried when he said that. She had spent so long believing she had failed by leaving active duty, by choosing motherhood, by stepping back from that world. It took someone like Commander Harrison to help her see that she had not failed. She had expanded her understanding of what service meant. Now, as she prepared to return to Denver the next day, Sarah looked at her reflection in the mirror. She saw a woman who was fully herself. She saw Viper 1, not the young pilot from 25 years ago, but a more evolved version. Someone who had learned that strength came in many forms. Someone who understood that the most revolutionary thing she could do was refuse to accept false choices. She was a mother and a pilot. She was a professional and a parent. She was a woman who had walked away from something she loved and then found a new way to love it. She was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Chief Advisor on Pilot Training Development. She was Emma's mother. She was a mentor to young female pilots. She was a friend to people like Derek and Jennifer who had supported her journey. Most importantly, she was someone who had learned that you did not have to fragment yourself into pieces. You could be whole. You could honor all the parts of yourself, your ambitions and your loves, your professional identity and your relationships, your need to achieve and your need to connect. As the plane lifted off the next morning, Sarah sat in seat 12F once again. The same seat where her transformation had begun. She looked out at the clouds and smiled. She was no longer wondering if she could reclaim herself. She had done it. Not by going back to the life she had left behind, but by creating something entirely new, a life that honored every part of who she was. Viper 1 was flying again. And this time, she was flying toward a horizon that included everything and everyone she loved.